A very good evening to all of you. Welcome to this week's media briefing. I'll hand over to Yatin to take us through the questions.
So Daria from Sputnik has asked, could you please share some details about Mr. Jaishankar's stopover in Tehran yesterday? Does India back Iran's inclusion in JCPOA now? Deepak Ranjan from PTI Bhasha is asking, विदेश मंत्री एस जयशंकर की रूस और ईरान यात्रा के क्या निहितार्थ रहे? Meghna from Doordarshan is asking, is there any discussion on the situation in Afghanistan on the agenda of talks between EM and his Russian counterpart? We have similar question from Maha from CNN News 18 and Archana from Bloomberg.
Thank you, Yatin. As you know, EM left on a visit to Russia yesterday. During his technical halt in Tehran, EM called on the President-elect of Iran, Ayatollah Saeed Ibrahim Raisi, and also held a meeting with his counterpart, the Foreign Minister of Iran, Dr. Javed Zarif. EM carried a personal message from our Prime Minister to the President-elect of Iran. The two sides exchanged views on regional and global issues of mutual interest. They also discussed the evolving situation in Afghanistan and expressed concerns over the deteriorating security situation in that country. Both sides also discussed joint connectivity initiatives in the region, including the International North-South Transport Corridor and the Chabahar Port. EM reiterated India's interest in the region and support for efforts to maintain peace, security and stability. As regards the JCPOA, we have always maintained that issues arising from that have arisen from that should be resolved peacefully through constructive diplomacy and dialogue amongst all parties. And on the Russia leg, we had subsequently, you have seen the press release that we have issued, highlighting the importance of the visit and its scheduled interactions in Russia. Are there any other questions on the Russia perspective?
Archana from Bloomberg is also asking what outcomes are we to expect from Foreign Minister's visit to Russia?
As we have said, the press release was quite detailed. This includes, in terms of his engagement, meetings with his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, Deputy Prime Minister Yuri Borisov, and the chair of the State Duma Committee on International Affairs, Leonid Slutsky. External Affairs Minister will also deliver a lecture at an important think tank later today. We will, of course, share updates as the visit progresses. Over to you, Yatin.
Maha from CNN News 18 is asking, is the Indian government looking at possibility of closing its consulate in Kandahar due to the Taliban making inroads there? Narendra Nath from Navbharat Times has a question. अफगानिस्तान में जारी ताज़ा हालात पर भारत का अब क्या स्टैंड होगा? वहाँ पिछले कुछ दिनों में हिंसक संघर्ष बढ़ गए हैं. Siddhant from Vion is asking, how do you assess the situation in Afghanistan? Is there any plan to bring Indian nationals back? Archana from Bloomberg is asking, how concerned are you about the possible Taliban takeover of Afghanistan? Is India currently bolstering its military support to the Afghan forces to stop the Taliban advance? We have similar question from Huma from Financial Express, Munish from PIO TV, and Deepak Ranjan from PTI Bhasha.
Look, this is an evolving and fluid situation, and there are various aspects to those questions. Let me say that there was a clarification issued by our embassy in Kabul earlier this week. You would have seen that. The clarification indicated that our embassy in Kabul and our consulates in Kandahar and Mazar-e-Sharif are functional. We are, however, carefully monitoring the deteriorating security situation in Afghanistan and its implications on the security and safety of Indian nationals in Afghanistan. Our responses will be calibrated accordingly, depending on how the situation evolves.
Daria from Sputnik is asking, Pakistan's NSA Moeed Yusuf has blamed India for the Lahore bomb blast. He has also said in an interview that Pakistan is no longer involved in back-channel talks with India. A response from MEA would be much appreciated. Nainima from The Print is asking, Pakistan has made severe allegations on how India is behind the Lahore blast that took place last month. What is India's reaction to that? Deepak from PTI Bhasha has a question. पाकिस्तान के राष्ट्रपति द्वारा हाल में भारत पर आरोप लगाया गया कि वह अफगानिस्तान की ज़मीन का पाकिस्तान के खिलाफ हाइब्रिड युद्ध में इस्तेमाल कर रहा है। इस पर मंत्रालय की क्या प्रतिक्रिया है? We have similar question from Narendra Nath from Navbharat Times and Siddhant from WION.
What can I say? It is not new for Pakistan to engage in baseless propaganda against India. Pakistan would do well to expend the same effort in setting its own house in order and taking credible and verifiable action against terrorism emanating from its soil and terrorists who have found safe sanctuaries there. The international community is well aware of Pakistan's credentials when it comes to terrorism. This is acknowledged by none other than its own leadership, which continues to glorify terrorists like Osama bin Laden as martyrs.
Gautam Lahiri is asking, neighboring countries are awaiting second dose of Covishield vaccines, which is overdue. Can India allow commercial agreement as token gesture? प्रवीण गौतम फ्रॉम न्यूज़ पॉइंट इज आस्किंग, विदेशों से आयात होने वाली कोविड वैक्सीन के बारे में अभी ताज़ा अपडेट्स क्या है? Maha from CNN News 18 has a question. What is the progress of Covaxin's clearance from WHO? Munish from PIO TV is asking, any progress on discussions with major countries like USA and UK on approving Indian Covaxin for travelers?
Again, there are a number of questions on that issue. Let me try to address some of them. First of all, let me reiterate that our current focus continues to be on purposing domestic production towards India's domestic vaccination program. We are also actively pursuing the enhancement of vaccine availability through imports. This has helped increase the pace of vaccination in recent weeks. और जहाँ तक ये वैक्सीन्स के आयात की बात है, उसमें मैं तो यही कह पाऊँगा कि ये आरोग्य मंत्रालय से आप संपर्क करें, क्योंकि ये उनके अंडर आता है और वो ही इस आयात के विषय में आपको स्थिति बता पाएंगे. Regarding Covaxin approval by WHO, we continue to monitor the progress, but I would refer you to Bharat Biotech for the exact status of where it stands. We also hope that individual countries would increasingly recognize made in India vaccines.
Gautam Lahiri is asking, how many countries have shown interest to adopt Indian COVID application, how India will proceed to transfer the technology, and whether India has decided to start with neighboring countries. Praveen Gautam from News Point is asking, अब तक किन किन देशों ने टीकाकरण अभियान के लिए डिजिटल मंच कोविन को अपनाने में रुचि दिखाई है? क्या भारत सॉफ्टवेयर को निशुल्क साझा करने के लिए भी तैयार है?
As you are aware, a very important event, the COVID Global Conclave, was convened earlier this week on July 5, which was actually addressed by our Prime Minister and other dignitaries. This was an opportunity to offer to the world our indigenously developed digital solution, digital platform COVID, and which is an open source that can be shared with all. More than 400 participants from over 140 partner countries participated. For the moment, I'd leave it at that, but discussions will continue with our partner countries.
Rajiv Menon from Malayalam Manorama is asking, Indian experts could not go back to Gulf because of travel ban and vaccine ban related prohibitions. Whether MEA is having any talks with Gulf countries for relaxation in travel for Indians. Visas of many have expired, but they could not make it to get there. Whether India would ask this country to give relaxation in visa norms under the present circumstances. Narendra Nath from Navbharat Times is asking, कई सारे स्टूडेंट को अलग अलग देशों के एम्बेसी के बंद रहने के कारण वीज़ा लेने में दिक्कत हो रही है. क्या सरकार इनसे कोई संपर्क कर रही है?
As we have said earlier, we hope that with the vastly improved COVID situation in India, countries would ease restrictions for travel from India. We have been taking up this issue with foreign partners wherever possible. Recently, External Affairs Minister and MOS Shri Muralidharan held a meeting with our ambassadors in Gulf countries, where our ambassadors were requested to take up with their host countries the issue of resumption of flights with India. EAM has also raised this issue during bilateral meeting with Saudi Arabia on the margins of the recently held G20 ministerial meeting in Italy. Foreign Secretary raised this issue with his counterparts, this issue of normalization of travel and mobility of students, professionals, and enabling for family reunions. So in summary, we are actively trying to help Indians who need to travel back to various countries across the world.
Strinjoy from Times Now is asking, what is the update on Mehul Choksi and Nirav Modi? Deepak from PTI Bhasha is asking, भगोड़े हीरा कारोबारी मेहुल चौकसी और नीरव मोदी मामले की ताज़ा स्थिति क्या है?
Well, while we share your concern at the need to bring such fugitives back to India to face justice, I actually don't have any immediate update on the legal proceedings that are underway. We will continue, of course, to closely follow developments in these cases.
Vishnu Som from NDTV is asking, does Government of India property in Paris, which has reportedly been attached as per court order, include the residence of Indian ambassador and the embassy in Paris? Elizabeth from Live Mint is asking, what is the Indian government's strategy going to be as Kane Energy has secured a Paris court order to freeze Indian assets in France? Kadambini from NDTV is asking, your reaction to French court order to seize 20 Indian properties in Paris Kane case. I have similar question from Archana from Bloomberg and Amity Sen from Hindu Business Line.
Look, we've seen the media reports on this. This is actually a matter that's dealt with by the Ministry of Finance, and I understand they have issued a detailed statement earlier in the day. I would refer you to that for answers to these queries.
Devi Rupa from The Wire is asking, what was the purpose of the meeting of Indian ambassador with OIC Secretary General? What was the review of OIC resolutions as mentioned in press release? Has there been previous meeting like this? Kallol from Hindu is asking, will MEA please inform about the details of the meeting between the Indian ambassador and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation's Secretary General? What prompted India's envoy to discuss Kashmir with Secretary General of OIC? Is this not violation of India's traditional stance on Kashmir as a bilateral dispute? Will India allow an OIC delegation's visit to Kashmir? Sadan from Vion is asking, Indian envoy to Saudi Arabia had met OIC Secretary General. What were the points of conversation? And OIC wants to send a team to Kashmir. Pakistan has also issued a statement on it. What is your reaction to that? I have similar question from Nainima from The Print and Kadambani from NDTV.
We have seen the press release issued by the OIC Secretariat regarding the meeting between our ambassador and the ambassador in Saudi Arabia and the Secretary General of the OIC earlier this week on July 5th. The meeting was actually held in response to an earlier request made by the OIC Secretary General to meet our ambassador. During this meeting, a wide range of issues were discussed. Our ambassador conveyed the need to correct some of the misperceptions about India that are perpetrated by vested interests in the OIC. Further, he conveyed that the OIC should be watchful that their platform is not subverted by these vested interests for comments on internal affairs of India or for anti-India propaganda through biased and one-sided resolutions. Well, as regards Pakistan, I have already referred to vested interests in my comments. I think that's very clear.
Narendranath from Navbharat Times is asking, स्टैन स्वामी के निधन के बाद विश्व के कई मानवाधिकार संगठनों ने सवाल उठाए हैं। विदेश मंत्रालय ने इस बारे में सरकार का पक्ष रखा था, लेकिन इसके बावजूद अमेरिका के एक संगठन ने इस पर सवाल उठाया। इस पर क्या कहना चाहेगा विदेश मंत्रालय?
जी, जैसा आपने खुद कहा, हमने इस बारे में, इस विषय पर हमने प्रेस रिलीज स्टेटमेंट दिया था। मीडिया क्वेरीज काफ़ी आई थी। मैं सिर्फ उसको दोहरा सकता हूं। अभी मेरे पास और कुछ कहने के लिए उस विषय पे नहीं है।
Archana from Bloomberg is asking, does the Indian government have a comment on French court ordering investigation of its purchase of Rafale combat jets from France's Dassault?
Look, this is clearly a matter for the Ministry of Defence, and I would refer you to them for a response.
Huma from Financial Express is asking, can you share updates on MOS visit to Guatemala and CARICOM countries?
MOS Shri V. Muralidharan is on an official visit to Guatemala, Jamaica and Bahamas. You would have seen the press release that was issued prior to the visit, as well as the detailed press releases that have been issued for different legs of this visit. I would hope that these detailed statements would address your query.
Srinjoy from Times Now is asking, when are the commander level talks in Ladakh? And Deepak Ranjan from PTI Bhasha has a question that पूर्वी लद्दाख में चीन के साथ जारी गतिरोध की वर्तमान स्थिति क्या है?
Well, you would recall that the 22nd meeting of the Working Mechanism for Consultation and Coordination on India-China Border Affairs was held on 25th of June. The two sides also agreed to hold the next, that is the 12th round of senior commanders meeting at an early date. We will certainly share any update once we have that. Meanwhile, I would like to reiterate that early completion of disengagement in the remaining areas could pave the way for the two sides to consider de-escalation of forces and ensure full restoration of peace and tranquility and enable progress in the overall bilateral relations.
Srinjoy from Times Now has another question. What made the Indian government wish Dalai Lama on this birthday after a long while?
It is the consistent policy of the Government of India to treat His Holiness Dalai Lama as an honoured guest in India and as a respected religious leader who enjoys a large following in India. His Holiness's birthday is celebrated by many of his followers in India and abroad.
Munish from PIO TV is asking, I don't recollect the last time Ministry of External Affairs had 3 ministers of state. Induction and reshuffle by Prime Minister Modi is strategic domestically. What does it imply in terms of external relations? Any particular allocations or portfolios for this MOSs?
Look, I can't comment on the statements made in the question. Let me just say that yesterday a swearing-in ceremony of new ministers in the cabinet took place, in which 2 additional ministers of state joined MEA. Both ministers, Srimati Meenakshi Lekhi and Dr. Rajkumar Ranjan Singh, assumed their charges today. Team MEA extends a very warm welcome to both of them.
I have no further questions, sir.
Thank you, Yatin. Thanks to all our viewers for joining in. I look forward to our next engagement next week. Good evening.